All right, we're back again. Here's where we left off last time with the UV unwrap of our Lego character's head. I did go ahead and I thought maybe the bump on that was still a little too severe. So I went to my head, um, clicked on the bump map, and then from here clicked on this little button right here. Looks like it says it goes to the output connection anyway. So I went in here and I pulled the bump depth down to 0.25. We can go even lower, perhaps, but 0.25 I think was a little less severe than what we had before. And that still may be, if you can see the highlight on this, still may be a little too much in the way of noise and texture on the surface. Um, so we can fix that in Photoshop if we decide to do that later. Another thing we may do is take this, that was a black line if you'll remember, that still is a pretty severe gouge. We can take that and lighten it in Photoshop, make it a somewhat lighter gray and not be as severe. But anyway, this is where we left off. We've got our Lego head. The next step, and probably the most likely for us, where we're going to need extra texture and graphics, is going to be the torso. So before I go in and unwrap that, I was going to go ahead and show all of the different components of this character. You've got the arms here, which we talked about needing some more subdivisions. What I did do is I set the pivot points as well on those arms, and see if I can get my stuff to work. I did at one point have the arms where they weren't coming, they weren't rotating out on an extreme um, extreme north-south axis. The actual rotation axis was along the cut there. Looks like we lost that. That's fine. Anyway, so the arm is separate. Um, I'm going to go ahead and pull the hand out here so you can see what's happening. I did, for the purposes of animation later, and we want to do something funny where his hand kind of comes out a little bit and looks more like a Lego character as he's stretching to reach for something. I've got the extra extrusion, so his hand has the cylindrical object that goes back up into this indentation here. I have the arm itself has got room for the hand to slide in. I mean, this is very much like a Lego character, as you can imagine. So I've got a torso, I've got two arms, I've got two hands, I've got legs, which they at least should rotate properly, even without our rigging. And I'll pull that leg out, and you can see all the pieces. So right, I've got a hole in the leg. That's kind of cool, where it slides into the hip joint here. Just do Command Z to undo that, and then I'll just grab all three of these, and you can see I've even gone and given the hip or the waist the proper pieces so that it looks like it snaps together. So we really are going to have a full-on Lego character here. This torso isn't exact if you're pulling apart your Lego characters at home, but I think it gets the point across. So we will want to, for the purposes of this week's exercises, we're going to UV unwrap everything, so even the hand, which I'm going to imagine is just going to be a solid yellow or a brown, tan, whatever we want to do with that. Maybe you've gotten a little more creative and he's wearing gloves or something. But even those solid pieces, we're going to UV unwrap just for the practice of it. This is the one that really needs the work, and so we're back to where we're supposed to be. Here's the torso that we're going to unwrap. So we're going to do like we did before and just do a regular, we're going to open up the UV editor, slide this over. For whatever reason, we've got oh, I know exactly what for whatever reason. So this started off as a box, this torso, right? Just a cube that I that I kind of extruded up and tapered a little bit there. And as well, I threw in I booleaned in a cylinder for the head to sit on. So here's some more behind the scenes of the character, right? So he's got the full-on Lego neck, and that's what that is in the UV. So you can see we've got the round pieces of the cylinder, and we've got some messed up pieces that were used to be the cube right in here, and there's some overlap. So as we like to do, we're going to go over here and use the automatic goodness. It should have saved our last settings, and it did. We want it all to be uniform scale, shell layout into square. Haven't played with a lot of these. I'm assuming into square just, unfolds it all out like it was cloth pieces on a table, and the other ones we'd have to play with to see what they do. But the 1024 map is what we want. The spacing is good, so here we're going to go ahead and apply it. We'll call that good enough for now. Again, if you've got multiple monitors, that's just cool. You get more room to do cool things. But try and maximize my views here. I'm going to click out to get my shells and figure out what's what. So right away, if we're planning on putting, I don't know, a Batman symbol or a, whatever, some kind of an icon or logo here, it's sideways. So we'd either have to flip the logo or whatever we want on the front of this in our Photoshop texture, or we can flip the UVs now and just rotate them all out. So I think what I'm going to try to do now is just select them all, and let's see if it'll rotate them all as one big group. Yes. There. So we were able to grab everything and rotate it. I'm not sure if we got exactly what we wanted. When I've got my move tools on over here, then I've got the same tools corresponding to here. So I'm going to pull this over and at least get it all back on the grid, because we've got this one cylinder piece that wants to hang out. So that's in full UV. I'm going to go back to shells, and that's right. Right, so that's going to be upright in our texture. That's cool. It's what we want. From here, I'm going to grab this shell and pull it in. We're not overlapping anything. We're definitely not messing with scale, but we're making sure it all fits on the page. Grab them all, pull them back over. Just trying to think of what else we can do. So let me explain some of these pieces here. So this right here is going to be the inside of this hole. I'm going to click out. Oh, we're still in shell. Let me go back to object mode. I'm going to pull this arm out and show you I've kind of made an indentation. I don't have anything coming out of the arm, but I started an indentation here for that to go into eventually, so that we can, if we get crazy and our character freaks out and his arms pop off, then it's all going to look legit. So anyway, that's what those are. Actually, what I'm going to do real quick, so I'm just going to hide this one arm so we can look at things. I want to hide both arms. Why not? Display. I'm going to hide these selected objects. They're gone. They're out of our way. All right. So yeah, back to UV and shell, and we can see those are what I thought they were. They're the insides of this. I wouldn't imagine we need to texture anything special there, but there they are. So we've got all of our pieces, and they're all laid out. One thing we can do, probably not for this particular piece, because if we've got a cool like wraparound design, or a sweater pattern, whatever we're going to do with this character, We want it all laid out. But what we could do is if we say we knew that we didn't care what the insides of the armpit, if you will, are supposed to look like, we could just grab all those, move them around. I don't know what happened. I got out of shell mode, UV shell. So we could grab all those and pile them up. Somewhere, and we could scale up other things and make more room, or we could just isolate a certain color to an area if it's all going to be solid. But there's a lot we can do. I think this is going to be the inside of the torso. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what this shell is right here. That's the front. It's the top where the neck comes out. Oh, fun. It's letting me select even through the head. I'll turn on X-ray mode so we can see that. So that's the top of the neck. These are the pieces around, inside, and if I can get through there, sure enough, that's all inside. So that we don't even care what that looks like for the most part. I'm going to try something here though, just for the purposes of illustration, just as a what if. Okay, so I'm going to grab this neck piece, and for now I'm just going to pull it completely out of the way. And we'll just forget it, because this piece means even less to me. So I'm going to move that out. All right, we're not going to change any scale of anything, so everything should kind of fit back in if we position it correctly. I'll pull the front down right about there. I'm going to pull the neck piece in. For whatever reason, it's easier to grab out here. Oh, no, focus doesn't work as well as we would hope here in the UV editor. We'll zoom in. We can get these almost touching, maybe even overlapping. All right. The texture I'm about to create may not need this, but for your character, this might be a good idea, right? And so now we've kind of got this continuous thing going. And so if your character was going to have a stripe that went over his shoulders and down his back and his chest on the other side or whatever, now we've lined it up. So we just got to kind of draw that one continuous thing here, and it'll lay out nicely. That's the front. So this guy should actually flip. If I was still wanting to lay these out more, I don't think I will. Let me start here. So I'm going to go, there's that piece. Here's the corresponding piece that should not be any different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that down. I can just flip it completely, which actually would reverse it, or I can rotate it until it matches that. And since they're really the same piece as far as shape, we're going to make those overlap. And whatever we color on one will be completely mirrored on the other side, but it's inside the character, so what do we care? Somehow we're into regular UVs. Go back to the shells. We can do the same here. Let's overlap these guys. Don't know why it won't let me select in there, but I'm going to shift click. Now I've got both of them. Pull it down, over. can even rotate these a few times. So again, because I've got my move tool selected over here, that's what I get to do here. I'm going to move this in. So now if I just paint this one general block area, it's going to get everything that's on the inside. Whoops. Click out, abandon ship. Alright, so I had somehow got the leg selected, and with that, we had a big mess. Okay, now let's see if it'll let me select over here again. No. Ah, here we go. If I do the selection from over here, it'll let me grab shells. So I've got all those. I'm pulling those down, putting them in the corner, out of the way. What's this guy? Oh, that's the top of that. We care just about as much for him as we do the rest.
Sorry, I can't find the answer to the question I heard.
Really don't think I asked the echo for anything, but if you can hear that, it's in the background, denying all knowledge. All right, so that's one thing we can do, right? We can just grab all the pieces in one area that are all going to be the same color or that we don't really care about, and we can stack them up, which gives us more room to move things around. And that was the point of this little piece of the exercise. I'm going to rotate this guy over, pull him in. So we're at this point, we're not messing at all with the way that the automatic UV unwrapper decided to break out the UVs, right? We're not changing the individual shells and pieces, but we're just moving them around and making them do what we want. Pull this guy over. This is all my neck, so I'm gonna do the same thing with him and just overlap all these pieces because they shouldn't really be much different, should they? Until your Lego character's head pops off, these aren't going to be seen anyway, so we'll stack them all up and move them somewhere out of the way. We'll just throw it in that corner for now, and we'll make this one follow it. That still gives it plenty of spacing and room to fold these out. So again, I'm just showing what kind of can be done with the UV editor tool before you decide to bake your UVs and take it into Photoshop. I don't necessarily need all these edits in my current plan for texturing, but we're doing it anyway. What just happened? There we go. So we're just going to move all the armpit pieces up here, maybe even let them overlap. I can't imagine a reason why we'd want them to be any kind of separate color or pattern. So we're going to move them all to overlapping. And there comes a point where we don't even care if it looks ugly. Now we might later. We might change our minds as we get to texturing our character or reimagining him and say, oh my goodness, I need all these to be specific in some way, and it's going to be a pain to come and pull those all apart just from the UV editor, because if I select one, I can get a bunch of them at once. I'm just eyeballing here. But what is helpful is the ability to select them by the UV shells out here in our viewport. So if we wanted to break them out later, that could be helpful. But I don't think we do. I really don't think we do at this point. So grab all these, pull them over, grab this piece, and finally let it rejoin its friends. Just a touch of overlap will pull that out some. So if we needed to, this is how we could get it to lay out, right? So if something was to flow down the neck, it'd go down the sides properly. We could even, I'm probably going to undo this, but I'm going to show it for the purposes of tutorials and learning. I can even rotate this guy out here and try and match the angle a little bit. And I could line them up here, right? And so it really just depends on what kind of pattern we imagine is going to be stretching across these different pieces and different components. So I'm rotating them some more, moving them in. Actually, I think I will leave this one down here and we can just see what that could possibly give us. Right, so I can freehand rotate using the rotate tool, or I can go by about what is it, about 45 degrees at a time using this. So cool. So let's imagine I'm doing Lego Charlie Brown and I've got this zigzag stripe here. Now it's going to be easier to just follow it along there because it lines up in our editor. Finally, I can move the base back in. I am going to move that back. No, I'm not. I'll leave that as is. And I'm going to move these up because I think it's going to be more fun for us to draw from front to side on this than it would be down the neck. So I'm going to move this up. Here's the interior. I'm going to do the same thing as I did with that one. I'm going to rotate this guy around. Now your own UV editing doesn't have to be this time consuming. Doesn't have to have this many steps. You might be just completely happy with what the automatic layout gives you, but I wanted to show what's possible because you're going to eventually run into a situation where you want to do something other than what Maya has said. Here, I'll do this for you. So I'm panning around here, making sure these line up and look all cool. Rotate and move, rotate and move. One would almost think you'd have rotate and move tools up here. And maybe some of those aren't, but there's just a lot of noise up there. But hey, these work. So those look lined up nicely. So now we've got our front and sides, back, and the top of the neck. Here's that bottom piece who's not really going to fit back in with this new layout. So I'm going to drag him up here. Give him a couple of shots of the old 45-degree rotation and just plop him there. because as I'm reasoning this out, right, these are completely inside and may not be seen. The armpit's kind of the same way. But if we ever have any kind of slight separation from the waist piece in our animation, we're probably going to see at least some of this. So we're going to give it its own area. All right. So I'm going to double check myself here with the shells, and that's the front, right? They're the sides we want. Those could easily be mixed up, right? We could, because these shapes are the same. If we're just doing it here, we could have mixed those two things up and drawn a stripe along here, and instead of doing what we would expect it to do and go down this side, it might have picked up and the stripe could have kept coming this way. So we want to check our shells before we bake. And everything lines up. So that's some of the fun things, depending on how you'd want to define fun, that we can do with the UV editor. But now I think we've got a good layout. So I'm going to turn off X-ray mode here. From here I'll go to my shells just in case, because I've made myself paranoid about this. I'm going to select them all. And give me that snapshot. So, yeah, I appear to have my images and source images mixed up, but I'm going to stick with it for now. So this will be my UV torso. Save that, keep all that, do it. Okay, just minimize that for now. Before I go into Photoshop, I'm going to go ahead and unhide my arms and save my file. Because you never know. All right, back to Photoshop. What just happened? The UV editor tried to come back up. Go away. So we're back to Photoshop. Here's where we left off with our Lego head. I did go ahead and off camera grabbed the different layers and moved them into folder groups here. So if we turn off the bump map, you can see I've got the regular texture underneath it. They're just easier to turn on and off and select. So I'm going to go open up my new stuff. Didn't mean to go this far back. Here's our out torso, open that up. And again, immediately save that as a PSD. It occurs to me I have no idea what I'm gonna make this character be. So we'll go with what we joked about earlier, and he'll be Charlie Brown. So kind of a yellow, not quite the same yellow we don't think as we had for the head. I'll use this one, something darker. Make sure I am so yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Okay, so we're back here. Name that an outline. And we start painting. Really like naming my layers like I like naming objects in Maya, because otherwise you end up with layer 1 through 100 and sphere 1 through 20 and whatever else, and it just gets disorganized. So we've got our yellow base. Just to make this brief because this is a little more of a Maya tutorial than a Photoshop. We're going to use a basic brush here to get this point across. Whoa, that got away from me. Okay, we'll try this. We'll go to our new layer, and we'll do this zigzaggy thing. Right, and try and time that out so that it just turns into a new zigzag. Problem is going to be lining it up here, right? We couldn't really wrap it all the way around, but the front is what we're going to see the most, so we want that to look decent. So that didn't line up at all, right? So we came down to just above halfway on that mark, and we need to be going back up. So like so. I'm going to guess will be the corresponding line up there. And smooth that out. Maybe they'll intersect well, maybe they won't. And this is right at halfway between the thing and needs to go back down. So we've got our marks. Now we just connect the dots. It's going to look terrible, but we get the idea. I expect you to do much better on your textures, but that's what we're doing here. I do want to think the regular yellow neck is going to be cool. I piled these up, and I'm not sure where each are, but I know on some Lego figures. I'm going to undo this, but for the sake of illustration, there's like a black mark on the front, or there used to be. But what I'm going to do is make these areas, I want to make that a little darker, so we'll select, there's that yellow. Not exactly what I wanted. That's closer. So just to help with the illusion of depth up inside, we're going to make this area darker. Fill that with foreground color. And probably not on this edge. Anyway, there's lots we can do, but I think the zigzag gets the point across. We'll modify this even just a little bit, and we'll give them a white collar lapel that hangs down the shirt, just for fun. So this is the darker inside. Zigzag line. We'll do another layer. Swap these, and I'm still just going to be drawing. Ultimately, we probably want to be doing a little more with selections and pens and all that stuff, but we're just gonna make this quick and sloppy. So holding down the shift key while I'm drawing out a shape, it will keep, if it's a circle, it'll keep it perfectly round. We'll do the same for a square. Yeah, don't want to move it, I want to move the selection because there's nothing in it yet. Use my arrows to line that up better since it's wanting to snap back and forth. We can pretend this is a more open-necked shirt, and we can make that yellow and have, well, we'll do that and we'll have a tie come down or a bow tie or something. So let me go back over here to this guy, and I'm going to grab this yellow, and in here I will fill this up. Oops, that shouldn't have happened. I accidentally had that selected still. No biggie. Back to our rectangle, because this is the darker layer. So select this and delete it. All right, so now we've got our yellower neck over coming out of our darker yellow shirt. We'll just go back to the tie idea. Oh, I've still got a selection on. So Command D. I go up another layer. All right, now we can see this little bow tie wrap around his neck. Undo that. Flip these, and I'm just going to draw right on the layer, and I'm going to go one up. Okay, let me go back and name these. This is neck. This is bow tie. This is where we want our highlights. Yes, I get carried away sometimes when I'm making these videos, but I'm having fun. Right, and so we'll just, right, that kind of shape and form thing going on. It'll swoop here. Let me turn off that outline. Whatever, right? So we've got a bit of a bow tie. Now we can get really fancy. We can double click in this guy. We can give us a drop shadow, right, if we want to get fancy. I've got to find it first. There it is. Whoa! Not what we wanted. Let's go for more of a 5 and a 7. And 90-degree on the angle. We've got global light on, so that now will affect all of our shadows and offsets. So anyway, let's see what that looks like. That adds a little bit of definition to that bow tie. Depends on how much realism you want it to have and how much you want to keep it looking like a Lego character. Anyway, look at this ridiculous looking image. You wouldn't think that would actually look like anything, but it will when we wrap it around. So here's all this. Before I go any further, I'm going to grab all of these. Okay, so I use my shift key, grab the top and then the bottom. All right, so I've got everything but the outline selected. I'm going to hit this folder, and this is the texture group. Cool. So let me save that. We'll just see what that looks like. Not what I had in mind. Say this is a torso. Just because you selected something that says PNG doesn't mean it actually will be. So let's go ahead and make sure we line those up. Alright, so this is our material Lego torso. We'll save that. Cool. Guess what I want to do? I want to give it at least as much noise as the last one. So I can copy it in here, or I can just do something else entirely. Output from here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off this. I'm just going to grab this base. I'll grab the scratch too. No, I'll just grab the base for now. So Command A, Command C, I've copied the layer. Come over here, I'm going to make a new layer. Command V. Alright, now I should have the same noisy looking texture as a bump map. One thing to note though is here's the base of the neck, right? Yay big. And here's like the corresponding bottom of this head, much bigger. So when we make our UV maps and they scale properly to themselves so that all the pieces on them are scaled, that's cool. But that doesn't mean they're going to line up in the scale with the other things. So I'm not going to worry about it too much now, but something to keep in mind is this texture, this noise texture that we've got on here for the bump is going to look bigger on this bigger UV than it will on the torso that we're about to output. And we are going to output that. You know what? I'm going to pull the scratch in too, just for fun. Do the same thing. Command A, Command C, bring it back over here, a new layer, Command V. Now I've got a scratch. Where does that come in at? Where do we want it? We'll just have the scratch somewhere there, right? Just for fun. And I'm going to, so he's got a normal, is that the same? This scratch layer has a normal blend and 100% opacity. We're going to change that. So we're going to go for like a screen. Ooh. We can do a lot of stuff here. Overlay maybe. And I'm going to pull the opacity down so it's not as deep of a gouge as it was on the head. So now we've just got a little bit of a scratch along the front of our Lego torso, not a big deal. When we pull the bump down to 0.25, that might look kind of cool. So here we go. I'm going to do the same thing here. Bump map group. I've got my noise, I've got my scratch. I'm going to output. Call it a bump. Make it a PNG. Cool. All right. Back to Maya. Same old thing, but we want to see what we just did. Why would we do all that work if we didn't want to see it? Assign new material. Did we go Fong or Blend last time? I think it was Blend. We'll do a Blend. Fong would be shinier. Okay. Name it and start hooking it up. File. Look at that. Goofy looking yellow shirt with a bow tie that's kind of covered up by his neck and a zigzag that we did a fairly good job of guessing how it lined up on the back, and we didn't have to along the front, and so it doesn't look too terrible. Almost confusing the way we've got the neck here now, but you can see that it is the same color. I'm going to pull the head up just a bit and we'll get a better look at how that turned out. Oh, look what we did. We didn't actually make the neck piece that color in our texture. Easy to fix, but that looks even more disjointed now. Goofy. All right, let's apply our bump, and we'll call it a day. So back to this guy. Wow. Okay, you know what I'm going to do here? Step 1, delete history. We don't need all that junk in there. Now we've just got the objects, the layer it's on, and the texture. So here we go, bump mapping, file again. Interesting that it goes straight to that. All right, we want the torso bump, tiny scratch. Apply that, and the scratch and everything not as tiny because we haven't reset that. So we'll go back here, make that 0.25, not 0.25, goodness, we won't see anything. Pulse that down, and now that just looks like a little tiny gouge. And we can pull the head back down where it was. Not too deep. Or close to where it was. So, please tell me you did a much nicer and more detailed texture than what we just did here, but we did at least learn how to lay things out nicely in the UV editor, and reuse some of our bump textures. I'm going to grab these things and look, we've got a slightly darker color in there, which masks even more the depth of that chasm. All right, Command Z. Cool. All right, we'll increment and save this guy. Please be much more creative with your textures, but now you know how to lay them out. So we've done the head, we've done the torso. The rest of these should be fairly easy. Make sure you add your subdivisions in for your knees or your elbows before we start creating the UVs, because if you start adding in lines afterwards, it could mess up the way your stuff is laid out and you've got to redo it all. So get your character set up, UV unwrap all the pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pieces. Yeah. Lego characters are made of a lot of pieces. So 9 pieces, which means out here in Finder land, or however your stuff is laid out, right, you should have a total of 9 bumps and 9 textures. So 18 PNGs in your images folder, 9 PSDs and 9, well, yeah, and 9 IFFs here in your source images. And we will look into seeing if we've got that completely wrong and switching those around, because Maya seems to think different. Anyway, all right, have fun texturing the rest of your Lego guy or gal or whatever he ends up being. And we will come back next week and we'll attempt to create a custom rig for him, and find that sweet spot from the Lego movies where They retain some of the rigidity of a plastic object, but still have some range of motion for fun and for emotion and all that other good stuff. All right, have fun.